Welcome to our deep dive into the recent DeepSeek data breach. And let me tell you folks, this one's a doozy. We are talking about a colossal security failure that has exposed the sensitive information of over 1 million users. 1 million. That's more people than live in insert a comically small town country for comparison. This breach raises significant concerns about data security and privacy in an age where we're practically handing over our digital lives on a silver platter. So buckle up as we explore 15 critical questions to understand the full impact of this breach, because this, my friends, is a digital dumpster fire you don't want to ignore. All right, let's rip off the bandage and reveal the gruesome details. What kind of information did DeepSeek so carelessly misplace? Well, brace yourselves, because it's not pretty. We're talking names, addresses, dates of birth, the kind of stuff that makes identity theft as easy as ordering takeout. But wait, there's more. In a truly baffling display of incompetence, DeepSeek also managed to expose some users' financial information. Yes, you heard that right. Credit card numbers, bank account details, the whole shebang. It's enough to make you want to bury your life savings in the backyard and live off the grid. But before you don your tinfoil hats, let's delve deeper into the fallout of this digital debacle. So you're one of the lucky million whose data DeepSeek decided to, shall we say, misplace. What does that mean for you right now? Well, apart from the urge to mainline chamomile tea and invest in a lifetime supply of antacids, you're now at a significantly higher risk of identity theft. Imagine someone armed with your personal information opening credit cards in your name, taking out loans, and generally making your life a living hell. And the worst part? You get to deal with the fallout while the perpetrators sip margaritas on a beach somewhere, presumably using your stolen credit card. Fun times, right? You might be thinking, okay, I'll just change my passwords, monitor my credit, and this whole DeepSeek debacle will be a distant, unpleasant memory. Oh, my sweet summer child, the long-term consequences of this breach are like a bad house guest. They overstay their welcome and leave a mess behind. We're talking about potential financial ruin from identity theft, years of battling to clear your name, and the constant anxiety of knowing your personal information is floating around the darkest corners of the internet. It's enough to make you want to renounce technology, move to a remote island, and live out your days as a digital hermit. Chapter 4. Now, you'd think that after such a monumental screw-up, DeepSeek would be falling over themselves to apologize, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Their response has been about as sincere and effective as a band-aid on a bullet wound. Sure, they issued a statement expressing their deepest regrets, which, let's be honest, is corporate speak for "we got caught," and yes, they're offering a year of free credit monitoring, which is about as helpful as offering a thimble of water to someone dying of thirst in the desert. Chapter 5. So, how could this digital dumpster fire have been prevented? Well, for starters, DeepSeek could have invested in some basic security protocols instead of, say, that ping-pong table in the break room that nobody ever uses. I'm talking about things like encryption, two-factor authentication, and maybe, just maybe, not storing sensitive user data on a server that's about as secure as a wet paper bag. It's basic cybersecurity hygiene, folks. Chapter 6. Now, the real question is, will DeepSeek face any actual consequences for this colossal mess? Well, that's where things get interesting. Depending on where they operate and what kind of data they mishandled, they could be staring down the barrel of hefty fines, lawsuits, and maybe even a strongly worded letter from a disgruntled grandmother in Vermont. But let's be real. In the world of corporate misdeeds, a slap on the wrist and a nominal fine is usually the extent of the punishment. Chapter 7. After a breach of this magnitude, DeepSeek's user trust is about as shattered as a dropped iPhone screen. So how do they even begin to rebuild the digital equivalent of the Great Wall of China? Well, it's going to take more than just empty apologies and a year of free credit monitoring. They need to be transparent, accountable, and actually demonstrate a commitment to cybersecurity that goes beyond a few lines in their privacy policy. And Chapter 8. Now let's play everyone's favorite game. How does this data breach stack up? Sadly, DeepSeek is not alone in this hall of data shame. We've seen some truly impressive breaches in recent years from companies that should know better. Remember that time? Insert a relevant and humorous example of another data breach. Good times. But in all seriousness, this highlights an alarming trend of companies failing to protect our data. Chapter 9. So, how can companies avoid becoming the next cautionary tale in the ever-growing anthology of data breaches? Well, it's time to talk about data storage practices. Think of it like this. If your user data is a priceless Ming vase, you wouldn't store it in a cardboard box in a back alley, would you? No, you'd keep it in a secure vault guarded by laser beams and sharks with frickin' lasers attached to their heads. Chapter 10, Third-Party Involvement, because passing the buck is a timeless classic. Now, let's not forget about everyone's favorite scapegoat third-party vendors. You know, those companies you outsource your data handling to because it's cheaper than hiring actual cybersecurity professionals. Well, it turns out that entrusting your users' sensitive information to the digital equivalent of a shady back-alley dealer might not be the best idea. Chapter 11. User actions, protecting yourself in a world where companies can't find their digital butts with both hands. So, you're probably wondering, what can I do to protect myself in this digital Wild West? Well, apart from moving to a remote cabin in the woods and communicating solely through smoke signals, there are a few things you can do. First, change your passwords, and I don't mean just adding an exclamation point to the end of your current password. I'm talking about creating a new, unique and strong password for every single account. Chapter 12. Ethical considerations. Because with great data comes great responsibility. Apparently, some companies missed that memo. Now let's talk ethics. Remember those? Companies have an ethical responsibility to protect our data. It's not just good business practice, it's the right thing to do. But judging by the sheer number of data breaches we see, it seems some companies are more focused on their bottom line than our privacy. It's like they're playing a game of digital roulette with our personal information, and spoiler alert, we always lose. So, how can we prevent another DeepSeek level disaster? Well, it's time for companies to stop treating cybersecurity as an afterthought, like that gym membership you swear you'll use but never do. They need to invest in robust security measures, educate their employees about cybersecurity best practices, and maybe, just maybe, stop storing our data on servers that are about as secure as a sieve. Now, you'd think there would be strict industry standards for data protection, right? Well, you'd be surprised. While there are some regulations in place, they're often about as effective as a chocolate teapot in a heat wave. We need stricter regulations, harsher penalties for companies that fail to protect our data, and maybe even a public shaming board for repeat offenders. Finally, let's talk about public communication during a data breach. Because nothing inspires confidence like a vague press release filled with corporate jargon and a healthy dose of "we take your privacy very seriously." Companies need to be transparent, communicate clearly about the breach, and provide affected individuals with the information and resources they need to protect themselves. Thank you for joining us in this deep dive into the DeepSeek data breach. As we've seen, the consequences of such a breach are far-reaching and long-lasting. It's a stark reminder that our digital lives are increasingly vulnerable in a world where companies collect vast amounts of our personal information. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and for goodness sake, change your passwords. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content. We'll leave you with this thought. If a company can't even keep your data safe from hackers, what else are they not being honest about?